Good afternoon, good people. Welcome to the 2 p.m. news on 88.4 Royal FM with me, MAPALAH ZITA. The headlines. As students and pupils settle in for the 2025-2026 academic year, which began yesterday, Elections Cameroon is also getting set for the forthcoming presidential elections in the country, and the board chair of that body has called on his staff members to be impartial.
Subsection 2 specifies that such meetings must be held at least once every fortnight after the electorate has been convened. It is within this legal and institutional framework that we are gathered here today.
Out of Cameroon, French Prime Minister Francois Bayrou has reportedly arrived to the Élysée Palace, where he is expected to deposit his resignation letter in the next hours ahead. And in sport, Cameroon's indomitable Lions will be playing a decisive match today against their counterparts of Cape Verde. Ladies and gentlemen, those were the headlines.
2025 presidential election, a special page in the news.
Welcome to the 2 p.m. news on Royal FM. In prelude to the forthcoming regional and presidential elections in the country, the board chair of Elections Cameroon has called on all his staff members to be impartial.
In a meeting at the headquarters of the electoral body in Yaoundé, the board chair, Dr. Eno Abrams Egbe, reminded his collaborators of the tight schedule of organizing two very important processes on the 12th of October and the 30th of November 2025. Eno Abrams Egbe in this excerpt.
As stipulated in section 19(1) of the Electoral Code, the electoral board must meet as often as necessary during an election period. Subsection 2 specifies that such meetings must be held at least once every fortnight after the electorate has been convened. It is within this legal and institutional framework that we are gathered here today. The regional elections are more than just another electoral milestone. They are a cornerstone of Cameroon's decentralization process and a vital mechanism for transferring power closer to the people. By electing regional councillors, the Republic is breathing new life into local governance and empowering communities to shape policies and development agendas that reflect their realities and aspirations. This election is therefore both a constitutional duty and a democratic promise, strengthening national unity while celebrating local diversity.
Here now is Mohamed Antonio Njoya, technical advisor number 2 at Elecam, who details out on the stakes.
Well, the stakes of this election is, first of all, to reinforce the transparency of the election. And when we talk of reinforcing the transparency, to ensure that the electoral process is perceived as fair and legitimate. And it is also very important to work on the appeasement of the election, because we all know that during this period, political tension can run high during an election. So it is therefore important to foster a climate of calm, dialogue and peace among stakeholders of the electoral process. So the main thematic chosen for this election come in point to calm down the minds of the stakeholders of the electoral process and ensure that on the 12th of October 2025, we have a presidential election that is credible, that is peaceful, and most of all, that is inclusive for all the stakeholders of the electoral process.
We have news from some presidential candidates who have been multiplying outings lately.
Let us begin with the UDC of Tomaino Damjoya, who has announced a trip to Gabon in the days ahead after previously visiting Down Beach Boya and the Metropolitan Archbishop of Douala, His Grace Samuel Cleda, where both personalities discussed on their wish of seeing a united Cameroon even after elections. After Garoua, Pierre Kwemo, presidential candidate representing the UMS, held a pre-campaign rally in Gaoundéré. The former mayor of Bafang reminded the population of their crucial role in bringing about change. Presidential hopeful Ateki Seta Caxton, on his part, drew a massive crowd in Monatele during his latest campaign stop over the weekend, energizing supporters in the Lekki division. In his speech, Ateki hailed the people of Lekki for their warm welcome and strong mobilization, describing the gathering as a moment of fraternity, passion, and shared hopes. He also stressed on their support injects fresh momentum into his vision for a new Cameroon, which will be built on solidarity, inclusion, and bold reforms. As for the UNDP of Bello Buba Maigari, he has kept on touring the country, with the most recent being in the West region, where he visited the traditional ruler Sokuju of the West region before proceeding to the South. While the polemic on their party's confrontations with local authorities in Menganga and in Limbe has been described as a misunderstanding that was resolved, this according to Paul Mbafo, UNDP National Youth President. Take a listen to him.
When we're in Menganga, everybody saw what happened. We had a written authorization to hold our meeting on the 5th. That was Saturday. So when we left from Douala and the motorcade of our chairman was heading to Limbe for the meeting, our militants on the ground who were doing the setup called to say that the hall was shot, and before the hall was shot, on instructions from the DO. I cannot verify because I didn't see any instructions from him, but we just saw the implementation of the instructions. A few hours to the meeting, we are told that the hall, the decoration set up, the chairs would be displayed, put in to receive the militants, were kicked out of the hall, and that the decorations in the hall were torn down. Actually, our meeting place was vandalized, and there was a heavy presence of police officers who came, expelled from the hall our militants were already there, and later on sealed the doors to the center.
Like the UNDP presidential candidate Bello Buba Maigari, Serge Espoir Matomba plans also on staging a political rally in Bafoussam this Wednesday, September 10th, as part of his nationwide campaign tour before campaigns begin officially. According to the Peace Party candidate, his campaign is built on a message of sovereignty, unity, and social justice. MAPALAH ZITA.
Evans, some civil society groups and coalitions have equally been making the headlines.
After his candidacy under the MPCN was sidelined by the electoral body in Cameroon, Shewa David has officially resigned to regain his party, the Democratic Liberation Party, where he has decided to support the lone female candidate for the process, Tomaino Damjoya. Here are his explanations in this soundbite.
The official positions of the Democratic Liberation Party, October 12th presidential election. We have decided to support Madame Tomaino Damjoya, the UDC candidate, a woman. And I choose her because she is from Fumban. It is in Fumban that this accord of our coming together was met. And when I discussed with her, she made it very clear that Fumban is where this thing happened. And when we look at the present dispensation, there is no son and daughter of Fumban that is in the regime that has not been working towards what was decided in Fumban. What was decided in their ground, everybody knows it, and she's going to implement it. Therefore, we're coming back to the two-state federation, that two people come in with two stars, with two prime ministers, and to see that the Anglophone crisis is sufficiently ended.
Meanwhile, a coalition of 21 political parties yesterday decided to back the CPDM natural candidate, incumbent President Paul Biya, for the October 12 polls. Speaking in a press conference in the capital city Yaoundé yesterday, members of this coalition argued that Paul Biya was the only candidate who had the capacity of reuniting the country and safeguarding peace. Here is one of the members, Reverend Bertrand Takwang.
We are here to let the opinion know that there is a coalition to support the candidacy of President Paul Biya. When we observe, we see that he is for the stability, for the unity and the progress of our nation. We are a political party, and when a political party is formed, it has its objectives, so we are prepared. The advantage as a coalition is that we don't need to go everywhere. Since we are many, we divide the work, and every party in its corner does what is necessary.
On the other hand, a group of opposition parties have planned on presenting a unique candidate for the upcoming elections on Saturday, September 13th in Yaoundé. I propose you listen to Jekam Chameni, member of the Douala Consolation Group.
Opposition leaders have listened to the appeal for coalition and then has come up with a platform, a common platform for transition and then refoundation, and then a consensual candidate. That is a process that will produce a consensual candidate by the end of this, and that consensual candidate will be presented to the people on the 13th of September of 2025. The mediator of the group of Douala have shifted the paradigm after attempting to get the 11 so-called opposition leaders to come together and found out that many of them actually either not interested or are actually CPDM. What we did is that we shifted the paradigm to candidates that were not retained, the Constitutional Council, and then to the entire political class and social society leaders, and then moved there to first have a common platform.
2025 presidential election, that was a special page in the news.
And still to come in this newscast, ladies and gentlemen, we talk education with a school principal who decided to appear in school on first day in school uniform.
Maybe he wanted to connect with the students, but some people might think it is foolish, whereas it is a good way to see how students behave.
Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, you are listening to the 2 p.m. news on Royal FM. And in education, learners and educators of the basic and secondary education sectors are in school today for the second day of the 2025-2026 academic year. Education experts say in order to ensure a successful school year, students need to prepare themselves right from these first days. Glory Ngange spoke with a pedagogue and now reports.
Classes have effectively gone underway in the country following official school resumption yesterday, September the 8th, 2025. Kengagni Bertrand highlights that this is the appropriate time for learners to set the pace for a successful school year.
Learning begins the first day, meaning that classes have started effectively since yesterday, and it is due to good programming that students can be able to end the year successfully. They have to be studious, and also they have to come up with a drawing timetable.
According to the pedagogue, teachers and parents are an integral part of the organization and follow-up of the learners' programs.
They need the assistance of the school administrators, their teachers, to come out with a timetable, because drawing up of timetable does not only entail coming out with the subject that a student is supposed to read every day, but it entails including the activity of the students every day. So we will need somebody who can orientate the child that at this time the child needs to be playing, at this time the child needs to be eating, at this time the child needs to read this subject.
Considering that educational institutions are made up of students with several learning capabilities, Kengani Bertrand points out that early planning can produce better results and also help students work at a more comfortable rhythm.
A child that is respecting this timetable will obviously perform well, and we have slow learners. With the help of this timetable, they can gradually pick up or learn a lot from what we have done, so that it will permit us to have good results at the end. And this timetable must be respected from the day the timetable is drawn.
As pupils and students embark on another academic journey, it is important to note that failing to plan is planning to fail.
Glory Ngange in that report. In a symbolic gesture of educating via actions, the principal of Government High School Bepanda in Douala made headlines by starting the new academic year dressed in a full student uniform. This unusual scene was captured in a widely circulated video on social media, which, according to local sources, was intended to send a strong message of humility, discipline, and solidarity to students. Our journalism intern, Christine Yumba, interviewed Cameroonians on what they think about the principal wearing a full school uniform. She recorded their views and compiled them in the following vox pop.
For me, a teacher who comes to school in a student uniform is really childish, because the school gave him a role, and that role is to be a teacher, not a childish teacher who likes to play with students. And the fact that he came to school with a student uniform, the respect that the student had for him will go automatically.
I think it is strange that the principal wore a school uniform on the first day. Maybe he wanted to connect with the students, but some people might think it is foolish, whereas it is a good way to see how students behave.
Personally, I think a pedagogue or administrator putting on school uniform is just a distraction, because I see in no way would it help him or his colleagues or the students do their job better. Because even if he wears his school uniform, it does not change his position. He will not sit with them in the classroom to make them feel at ease or things like that. But what they say, maybe he has reasons for doing it.
And following the viral videos and images on social media showing a principal in school uniform, information surrounding the image also say the administrator was setting an example of decent dressing for his students as the new year unfolds. Glory Ngange got the appraisal of a pedagogue on the strategy by his colleague. Let's now listen to Yunsi Isaac Moore.
This was his own way of showing his learners how they should dress throughout the school year. It should be recalled that the context of this is the fact that students no longer dress well. Their uniforms are often tight-fitting and do not always meet the standards. I think this is a good thing because the principal wants to teach by example. He wants to show them exactly how they should dress. But I think limiting it at this level will not help because we need to continue to sensitize the students. We need to work in collaboration with other departments of the school, those in charge of discipline, those in charge of counseling and orientation, so that this good example should be lived all through the school year and beyond.
Recently, the country has recorded several attacks and kidnappings. These happenings are mostly in the far north, northwest, and southwest regions. These regions are known for constant insecurity due to the pressure of separatists and terrorists. As a result, Frinwe Crispin interviewed a human rights activist on the pedagogic strategies that can be used to ensure the safety of students and pupils in this region during the school period. Here is her report.
According to Dr. Fai Derrick, human rights activist, there are a number of strategies that can be put in place in order to ensure the safety of students and pupils in the crisis-triggered regions.
I think one of the things we might want to consider doing is by ensuring that we modify the school calendar in the conflict zones. We adapt the school calendars to the present context in which kids find themselves. That is to ensure that in moments of low conflict intensity, they can be given the possibility to continue studying, while in periods of high intensity, they are asked to stay away from the classrooms while ensuring continuous assessment and distance learning with their teachers.
Moreover, they could also make use of e-learning, and for areas with no internet, community radios and recorded audios could be used.
We also want to talk about the continuous negotiation and dialogue between the different belligerents to make them to understand the importance of seeing the attacks of school as a humanitarian crime, as a war against humanity. When these actors are educated enough to understand how important and fundamental education is, I think they might want to change their stance.
The human rights activists further condemned the different attacks and kidnappings in these regions.
In as much as they have grievances and they are fighting to put these grievances on the right table to get solution, they shouldn't cause another harm, which is that of jeopardizing the school of kids.
Dr. Fai Derrick ended by revealing that such conflicts is termed conflict of identity. This means it always escalates each time we think things are going back to normal.
And onto this feature, story accident statistics show that injuries are a significant global health issue, with millions of non-fatal injuries and many fatal ones occurring annually. When medical emergency strikes, the first few minutes can be most critical. To get the inside scope on essential first aid techniques, our reporter Ngang Nadesh caught up with a health expert who shared valuable insights and practical advice on how to stay safe and save lives. She compiled the ideas in the following report.
Asangba Fina is a nurse. She attempts the definition of what a first aid treatment is all about.
First aid is defined as the immediate and initial assistance given to a person suffering from a minor or serious illness or injury with the aim to preserve life, prevent the condition from worsening, and promote recovery until professional medical help is available.
Basic first aid skills are essential for everyone. Knowing what to do in emergencies can save lives and reduce the severity of injuries. Fina outlines some of these basic skills.
The most essential first aid skills that everyone should know. First, CPR, which is cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and is mostly used to preserve brain function, circulation, and breathing during a cardiac arrest. Abdominal thrust, treating severe bleeding by applying pressure to the wounds, setting splints for fractures to prevent further injury.
From minor cuts and scrapes to burns and sprains, many common injuries can be effectively treated with basic first aid. The health experts highlight some common injuries that can be treated with first aid, providing practical tips for everyday emergencies.
Fractures can be managed using the Price approach, which is choking can be managed using the abdominal thrust. This will help whatsoever thing that has obstructed the airway to come out by coughing. Eye injury, in case of a chemical, you simply put the person under running water for about 10 to 20 minutes to rinse any remaining chemical found in the eyes before seeking medical attention.
While intentions may be good, first aid efforts can sometimes do more harm than good. The nurse concludes by citing common mistakes people make when administering first aid and how to avoid them.
Most at times, in cases of accident, we find ourselves rushing to save the individual without actually removing that person from danger and securing our own safety. In case of any accident or in case of any emergency, the person should be removed from the source before any first aid can be administered. Most of us now, we have this mentality that with the little knowledge we have, we are already healthcare professionals and we can manage anything, of which that is not the case. If you have been managing cases like burns, fractures, it's always advisable to call medical help because not every case or not every fracture is the same.
World First Aid Day is observed annually every second Saturday of September to emphasize on the importance of being prepared to respond in emergency situations.
The Economic Community of Central African States, CEMAC, will hold its extraordinary Head of State Summit tomorrow, September the 10th, 2025 in Gabon. This within the context where the institution is sailing in troubled waters, mainly due to its regional integration policy that has failed to be implemented in years within member countries of the institution. Despite several attempts to make things work in the economic zone, many of them turn out to be a failure. Now, just what exactly seems to be the problem and what measures can be taken to foster united actions in the CEMAC zone? Jeffrey Tachum spoke with economists and now reports.
Cameroon is known to be a great giant in the CEMAC zone through economic potentials, its demographic weight and strategic position at the center of the sub-region. However, this status does not seem to be of great help within the economic institution. To economists, this status quo needs to come to an end.
I have serious doubts as to the capacity of the CEMAC zone to compensate for Cameroon's efforts. So it is high time for Cameroon to start working forward for better opportunities, considering the structural transformation of its economy.
A point of view which Henry Kwam, director at the Cameroon Economic Policy Institute, aligns with.
The question we should be asking ourselves is, do we think that Central Africa are ready for free movement of people? Because Cameroon is the richer country, Central African Republic, Gabon, Chad, all of those countries are already the less, affluent than Cameroon. So if we have free movement of people, you're going to have people being, all of those countries, Central African Republic, Chad, Gabon, to Cameroon.
But then, just what needs to be done in order to foster development in the CEMAC sub-region in a way that pulls interest and brings effective regional integration like in other African economic zones. Henry Kwam once more.
We have to ensure that all of the economies converge, which means that we need to have, stronger economic growth. We need to ensure that inflation falls below 3%. We have to ensure that the majority of countries have, growing incomes and poverty rates that are under 40%.
The free movement of goods and people remains an illusion rather than a reality in the CEMAC zone as a result of conflicts linked to national interest. The institution should position itself to benefit from this free trade area.
Out of Cameroon, French President Emmanuel Macron is seeking his fifth prime minister in less than 2 years after opposition parties united to oust center-right Prime Minister François Bayrou over his unpopular plan for budget tightening. Bayrou's 9-month premiership ended on Monday, that's last evening, when he lost a parliamentary confidence vote. He has reportedly already arrived to the Élysée Palace, which houses the presidential office and residency, to tender his resignation to Macron. Whoever Macron will pick, according to critics, will be faced with the near impossible task of uniting parliament to pass next year's budget. The Prime Minister of Senegal, Ousmane Sonko, has today cancelled his first official trip to France, scheduled for the 23rd of September. Invited to an investor forum organized by a French investment bank, BPI France, Sonko expressed his sincere thanks to the bank as a guest of honor in the 11th edition in Paris. But in the same statement, Sonko also announced 2 other official trips, one to the United Arab Emirates from the 8th to the 12th of September, and another to Italy, where he will meet with the Senegalese diaspora on the 13th and 14th of September. The Senegalese Prime Minister will also welcome his French counterparts to Dakar as part of the intergovernmental seminar. The date remains to be confirmed, as it is not clear who the French Prime Minister will be. Peacekeepers from the United Nations MINUSCA mission in the Central African Republic have been reaching out to residents of Bangui living with disabilities. At an event marking World Humanitarian Day, Blue Helmets from Morocco, Rwanda, and Egypt organized a medical campaign to ensure that everyone has access to medical care. Captain Haja El Kashrawi is head of civil military activities for MINUSA, and she says the day is not just a commemoration but a day for all people with disabilities, a tribute to their courage, a helping hand, and a look that say they are not alone. Over in Mali, the military has launched airstrikes in the gold-rich Kayes region after Al-Qaeda-linked militants moved to block fuel imports into the capital Bamako. The group announced the blockade last week, also restricting movement in the town of Kayes and Nioro near the Senegalese and Mauritanian borders. Since then, militants have stopped fuel trucks and escalated attacks on businesses, including cement factories, sugar plants, and gold mines. We come back with sports just after this break. Sportsman Biwa Brian has joined me. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, MAPALAH ZITA.
The Indomitable Lions of Cameroon will face off against Cape Verde at the Estadio Nacional of Cabo Verde in Praia today at 5 p.m. And ahead of this game, you have a preview, Brian.
Today's game against the Blue Sharks of Cabo Verde is a top-of-the-table clash that could be a defining moment in Group D. Cabo Verde, known as the Blue Sharks, is currently leading group with 16 points from 7 matches, while the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon are just 1 point behind with 15 points. Galamaimo, sports analyst.
The match Cape Verde against the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon is going to be a very interesting match, a match where many things are at stake. Yeah, the winner of this contest tonight will definitely have a one step ahead with regards to the upcoming World Cup.
Given the close nature of the race, a win for Cabo Verde will significantly strengthen their position and bring them closer to direct qualification.
On the other hand, a victory for Cameroon would see them leapfrog Cabo Verde into first place, taking control of the group, while a draw will keep things tight and leave the final 2 match days crucial for both teams. According to Ngala Maimo, a slight tweak in the starting lineup could see Cameroon secure the victory in today's game.
I expect the Indomitable Lions coach Mark Brees to do about 3 changes. The first one of in the midfield, Avom should rest. Carlos Baleba was not there last match because of the suspension. So we have Baleba, which is a player that we cannot afford to miss. And in the right back, the fastest right back in the Premier League and the fastest player in the Premier League should come back. Talking about Chachwa, he should definitely replace Muminga Malo in the right back. And the left back, I think Nuutolo with the experience should definitely come in place for Nagida.
Notably, the rivalry between these two nations has come closely under contest in the past. Case in point is their last 5 meetings, where Cameroon holds a slight edge with 2 victories compared to Cabo Verde's 1 win and 2 draw. This historical pattern suggests these matches are usually competitive, with neither team holding a significant psychological advantage. Adding to the drama, this match is expected to be a tactical battle between a defensively organized Cabo Verde and an offensively minded Cameroon, who has produced 15 goals in their campaign. Considering the stakes and the tight nature of the group standings, many analysts predict a cautious affair with a low number of goals. In the end, while Cabo Verde has the home advantage and recent momentum, Cameroon currently has quality and experience on a big stage and makes them slight favourite. But however, a draw would be no surprising outcome for both teams, as both teams will be wary of losing this crucial tie.
And in the build-up to the said fixture between the Blue Sharks and the Indomitable Lions, Mark Brees, head coach of the Indomitable Lions, yesterday revealed in a press conference that their objective is to grab maximum points. Take a listen.
I think that you will quickly will see in 5-6 minutes the team will be on the pitch. I think it's not necessary to talk about it. You will see very quickly how the composition will be. But we're here to win, so if this is an answer for you. Yeah, of course, I think it's not because it's Cape Verde. I think we have all the respect against the teams that we have to play against. So it's not different. At home we won, but at home Cape Verde is strong. They're also first in the ranking, so I think we will have to play a good game to win the game.
According to statistics from Sinafoc's salary barometer, the payment of salaries in the Elite 1 and 2 championship increased towards the end of the 2024-2025 season. The statistics was disclosed in a press conference held over the weekend in Yaoundé by the National Football Syndicate. Jacques-Marcel Itiga is the head of communications at the syndicate. He sheds more light in the following excerpt.
First of all, the average payment of salary has slightly increased during the month of June, and this due to end of season engagement, teams that were fighting against relegation, those that were fighting for first places. Club president decided to motivate by paying certain arrears of salaries. That's why there's that slight increase in the payment average of salaries. But this slight increase doesn't impact on the living conditions of players, simply because after having passed 3-4 months without salary and those arrears are paid, upon receiving the money, they also pay all the debt they had. So this doesn't really have an impact on their living conditions.
Doreen Bimi has joined me in the studio with a summary of this newscast in the French language. Bon après-midi, Doreen.
Good afternoon, MAPALAH ZITA Éducation. Dans le cadre de la rentrée scolaire, le ministre des Enseignements secondaires, Nalova Lyonga, met une plus-value à l'apport pédagogique des lycées techniques au Cameroun. La cérémonie s'est ouverte hier, jour de rentrée, au lycée technique professionnel d'Ekounou. Elle a également instruit les délégués régionaux du MINSEP de mener des missions identiques dans toutes les régions. Et toujours dans le cadre de rentrée scolaire au lycée de Bépanda hier, le proviseur de cet établissement s'est habillé en tenue de classe pour montrer le bon exemple aux élèves. Tenue simple, tennis blanche pour tout le monde. Sur la scène internationale en France, François Bayrou est arrivé à l'Élysée ce mardi matin pour présenter sa démission à Emmanuel Macron. La confirmation sera faite en mi-journée, mais pour l'instant, l'Élysée a indiqué qu'il nommera un nouveau Premier ministre dans les tout prochains jours. En sport, Coupe du Monde 2026, les Lions indomptables du Cameroun rugissent ce soir, 17h heure du Cameroun. Ils seront face au Cabo Verde à Praia. On rappelle que ce match crucial compte pour la 8e journée de ces éliminatoires et pourrait permettre au Cameroun de prendre la tête du groupe D.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our package for you this afternoon. The 2 p.m. news was technically assisted by Romuald Ekume. Brian Bida took care of the cameras for our Facebook Live. Production assistance, Biwa Brian, assisted by our journalism interns, Christine Yomba and Naomi Abongwa. Script editing and editorial coaching, Abel Bela Samari. Central coordination, Roger Kiek, our station manager, and general supervision by the Reverend Pastor Bisai Emmanuel Noel. For news editing and presentation, my name is MAPALAH ZITA. Thank you all for your kind attention, and do have a pleasant afternoon in the company of programs over Royal FM. Up next is part 2 of Fresher Royal, and Raissa Parker is back here in the studio. Welcome back, Raissa.
MAPALAH ZITA, merci beaucoup. Merci aux auditeurs qui sont restés avec nous pour cette deuxième partie de Fraîcheur Royale, le goûter de nos enfants. Comment organisez-vous cela? C'est de l'argent ou alors le repas est qui choisit? Est-ce que l'enfant peut dire je préfère manger telle chose, ou alors je préfère que papa me donne de l'argent et non un repas?